Hi everyone. So we basically wanted to talk about today's Ecmascript specification. So like the JavaScript that we use and write all the time. Now we normally learn that from different resources like different blog posts or some good books, right? But at the end of the day, there has to be like one, you know, like one place where everything is sort of specified and defined, because else it will be like very different, very hard to write the same code which runs everywhere. So for example, like earlier browsers used to like implement things like slightly differently, so that used to cause a lot of problem. So instead now what we have is the ECMAScript specification, and there everything is basically defined. Like let's say something, you have array.push, right? Even that is written down like step by step, that every browser should effectively do the same thing. Now, like this is still a specification. They don't tell that you have to implement it in the exact same step by step way, but the result should be the same. Like there should be no observable difference as such. And like the people who design this ECMAScript language or specification, or do the modification. So this is called like TC39. So this is like a technical committee under some organization called ECMA. Okay. And yeah, and basically how it works is that a lot of people, a lot of organizations are member of the ECMA International, and whoever is a member organization, they can send in some delegates to this TC39 meeting and other things. So yeah, so this is like their website, tc39.es, and they have the spec link here. So yeah, this is the link basically. I've opened it here. So if I go to the top, right? So this is like how it says, like Ecmascript 20 window language specification. Now this is like how this numbering thing works, right? So for example, I missed one thing. Yeah. So for example, it's like this. See, there are, so whenever you have a proposal, so let's say you want to improve something in JavaScript language, right? You can start a proposal, and it goes through these 4 steps. Okay. So basically it starts from like you basically have some idea. You don't know if it is good enough or not. And then, okay, if enough people have interest, then it moves to stage 1. There you have to basically define the overall things and say how it will work. And of course people will give you feedback how you should change it. And they can also, so it works by consensus. So if any one of the delegates says that I think this should not go forward, then it will not go forward. But yeah, normally how it happens is that they will also give you feedback that what you should change to you know like yeah, move it forward basically. So then it goes to like this stage 1, 2, 3, right? So when you go move to stage 2, you have to have like all the details and all the edge cases figured out. And then in stage 3, it's more or less frozen. But now the implementers like browser and whoever implements these engines, they will take a look at it, see if it is feasible to implement it in the current form, if it can be optimized, and they'll try to implement this in some engine behind some flag. And if that is also good enough, then it finally moves to stage 4. So stage 4, like it will basically then wait in stage 4 till that next version of ECMAScript comes out. So let's say when ECMAScript 2021 comes out, right? So this is like a draft version right now. It says like draft. So in the next year, they will see that, okay, like at the start of the year or around the start of the year, they will see whatever proposal are in stage 4. So all of them will get like merged into specification and they'll get released. Okay.
I
Yeah.
have one thing on this. Uh, the browser doesn't wait for the new version of ECMAScript to come, right? They can start implementing some of those specifications during the proposal time as well. But that is not standardized. But browser do like a lot of those uh, in proposal thing are available on the Chrome or like Mozilla. So
Hmm.
they can still implement it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think they can still implement it. But from what I have read, I think they implement it behind a flag so that like everyone doesn't start using it. But
Okay.
yeah, it's up to them if they want to release it for everyone or not.
Got it. Got it.
So yeah. And
And
like TC39 has, yeah, continue.
Yeah, and this is what in Babel earlier, now
Mhm.
we don't have any stage type of naming convention on that, but earlier
Mhm.
in Babel we used to have stage 0, stage 1, and this is basically what it means, right? The 0 is where something is out, then for a proposal, and then draft types. Now in Babel, the plugins are more of a it's called slash proposals, like a hyphen
Mhm.
proposals,
Mhm.
or if it is when it goes to the final, it becomes I forgot the naming for that, but yeah, then it actually become like a plugin transform syntax. Otherwise, it will be proposal transform transform syntax something.
Okay. 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 So that way you can identify if like something you are using is actually uh, on the browser or not, something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Nice. So yeah, till now, any general question? I think we are anyway doing like this is not like anything cool. Just the background basically. Okay, cool. So anyway, we talked a lot about the theory, like the background thing. So let's actually look into the specification and go into one of the sections and see what it is. Okay.
Hey, Abbas.
Hey, hi.
Hey, just before going to specification, maybe
Mhm.
I have a quick question. Not sure if
Yeah,
you're going to cover that.
sure.
We generally hear version numbers, right? ECMA, ECMA version 6, 7, 5. Is
Hmm.
that this year that it is being built or something like that?
No, I think like officially they don't number it like that anymore, right? But earlier it used to be something like that. So I forgot the exact thing, but it will be like if they release it in 2015, that will be like ECMAScript 6, and so on and so forth. But that becomes like hard for them to manage, right? Because like now it's what 2020, and how will you give that some number? So now the official numbering is just by year, like like in 2020 they already released the ECMAScript 2020 specification, and now like whatever change is being made, that will be for the next year.
So is it something like they release every year or so?
Yeah, you can sort of say like, so there is a live version, right? If you go to this thing, right, this URL at any time, this is whatever is already merged into it and everything, right? But they also give like make a year wise version. So they already released a ECMAScript 2020, and like because this is part of the standards body, right? So ECMA is like a standard body. They look at a lot of things, not just JavaScript or anything. So ECMA and ISO, I think they also have like a frozen copy. So you can like probably go into their page and find uh, the frozen version of ECMAScript 2020. That will
Mhm.
not change.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and also like on their page, I think they do this. Okay, so they have this uh, repository on GitHub, tc39/proposals. So essentially, if you go there, you can see like what are the current proposals, like which stage they are in. Okay, and so like see you will see something like champion. The champion is something who is a TC39 delegate. Okay, it's like someone who is who like whose company is part, joined the ECMA organization. So someone has to be the champion, but someone else can also be the author. So it's like you can also propose something, but you still need some champion from the existing delegate team, something
Mhm.
like that. Yeah, and this is also interesting. They say like this, see, tastes are basically added or not. So there is a like related repository called, oh, it's not here. Okay, so there's a related repository called test 262. So you can also find that. Okay, so how it works is that when the specifications are like close like mostly figured out, they will add test for those specific things in this repository. So yeah, and then like all the browsers can use this test 262 to check if their implementations are correct or not.
Mhm.
And of course like browsers will have their own extra tests also, but this is like a basic list of tests that are already there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So if we actually go into the specification, so So this is basically just a single huge HTML page. Okay, you can even see how they write it. So they have some kind of a markup of their own called like EC markup, they call it. So yeah, so they write it in some HTML plus markdown mixed kind of a font, but finally it renders into this HTML. Okay, so the first thing is you can remove it. Okay, it's like very boring, but if you see this table of contents is actually very useful. Okay, so first of all, like if you want to learn about something, you have to find where that thing all is, right? So one way is you can search it here, but this is not like your Chrome search. But yeah, if I write if, right, it will show me that okay, maybe there are like two parts where it talks about if statement. Okay, so you can either find something to search here, or else there is this table of content, and that is like distributed. I mean, it's sometimes hard to understand why it's distributed this way, but I'll still give you like a general idea. Okay, so
I have a question here.
yeah.
Why this looks very ugly?
I don't know. Actually, the HTML specification is pretty cool. If you have anyone seen that.
No, actually, none
Yeah.
of the specification site are user friendly.
Yeah,
It
yeah, that's
always
true. That's
seems
true.
to be scary.
That's true. But if you actually seen this, right? Uh,
This is
this is- but
okay.
I'll tell you, this is still better than what they have. Okay, so if I go to some, see, this is still much more readable, right? Compared to that thing. So yeah, this is
Yeah.
the HTML specification. They have done it in a much better way. So yeah, I think that they like for JavaScript specification, they already have a issue open. So if someone wants to contribute, so someone has to like use that kind of a framework for this, so that this looks much better. Yeah.
So
Right.
obviously the focus is not on the experience; it's only on the content.
Yeah, I mean, this should be better anyway. If like we are writing about JavaScript, yeah. Anyway, and this is like also hard to read on mobile little bit. Like, so there is one weird hack. Okay, so open this on Firefox mobile. That will be still much more like fluent. But if you open it on Chrome mobile, that is very hard to use. It becomes very slow. Okay. Anyway, and they have like these small features. Okay, so if you like some section, so all the sections have a permalink. So let's say I have reached this if statement. If I click on permalink, like this will give me a hash ID identifier, and that will like always work. And I can also some like pin something. Okay, because there is like so many things to explore, right? If I pin, it will come on this section, and I can again like it. I can even click and remove that. So and that's like a bookmark, but yeah. Okay, so the first thing is this. Can I remove this window that I see on the right? Okay, cool. So yeah, the first thing we see is if statement, right? Now this is how it like it is normally written. So they will first tell you that what is the syntax of this thing, and then tell you like how it is supposed to work. Okay, so let's say if has two forms, and this syntax that you are seeing, right, how it is written. So that is normally called as BNF grammar. Okay, so I also didn't know that. So I just asked them. They said this is BNF grammar. You don't even know that, and and there is actually a section on the specification itself. Uh, somewhere at the stop. Yeah. So if you go to section 5, it says notational conventions. So there basically they will tell you how the syntax works. Okay, but I will tell you like overall it's not very hard to read. So if you see, it says the if statement, like they have if defined. This is the if statement, and this has like two options. Okay, yeah, so basically it will take either one or two, any of these forms. Okay, so the first form says that if, and then you have to have starting brackets or ending brackets, if some expression, and then you can write some statement, and again else some other statement. This is one form if you use if plus else, or else you can use just if. So yeah, they're basically just saying that this has two available syntaxes. Now yeah, I can try to write that also. I just yeah. So I'll try to show what that means, right? I mean, we of course we all write if else anyway, but still. So if, and we can write some expression, let's say, okay, I write hello, fine. And then it says, if we go back there, then it says that it can be a statement. Okay, so statement normally means a single statement. So ideally, like in the simplest case, this will just mean that I can write a single thing here. Okay, but statement has, it's like a nested definition. So if I go into statement, you will see statement has multiple forms. So let's say the thing I wrote right now, console log something, that is a expression statement. But this, like the one we use normally within if, is the block statement. So instead of writing one statement, we can write multiple things within the curly brace. And then there is this interesting one called empty statement. So let's see actually what those are. So again, this is like a nested definition. So you clicked on statement and you reached here. Then you can click on empty statement and see what that means. Okay. So see, empty statement says that it just has to be a semicolon. That's all. So like I can literally go here. I can remove all the, and this is a valid if statement. Okay, like this is an empty statement. That's what I have written here. So that is one form of it. What is the other form? Let's say we don't know how to write this block statement. So we'll go in there. So I go in here and it says block again. Okay, this block is defined here. So block says you have to literally put this curly braces in start and end, and then you can write statement list, right? Okay, so this one is a little bit hard to read, but you can think of this as like a array of statements. So they have actually defined it in a recursive way. So they are saying that statement list can be a statement list item, like it can be a single statement basically, or else it can be statement list plus statement list item. So this is like a recursive definition, just like a equal to a plus b, or a can just have b, something like that. But this basically means that you can have like an array of like, multiple statements basically. So if I go in here, I can now use the block statement thing and I can put basically multiple things here, whatever I want to write.
Can you just change that hello to true, because people might get confused by why just a string.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that is also truthy value, so that would work. But
Yeah, yeah. True. So any questions, like anything? Did you understand till now? Basically.
can you just bring to this here?
Yeah, there are a lot of things basically here.
With statement.
So I'll just continue speaking, but yeah, pause me whenever you want. So till now what you have seen is how a if statement should look, like the syntax of it. Now we can look at how it runs, like what steps should run. See, like there are different Gyno statements. So I can go into, let's say, continue statement, and this is what it says: continue, and then you have to have the semicolon. But if you know, right, continue also allows you to write a label. So you can like continue and then put a label, which is a label you have to use on the for loop also, something like that.
How many of you have actually used label? Um,
Yeah, if anyone wants to share. I actually think label is useful sometimes. Like if you have 2 or 3 loops.
yeah, if there are only 2 or 3 nested loop, then only it's helpful. But somehow it feels very confusing when you see like I realized about level a year back or something only, and I didn't know that JavaScript has label as well.
Yeah, so we'll actually write down if someone is confused, like what is the labels, right? So basically if I have a for loop, sorry,
Yeah, this is fine.
like, yeah, a continue or break both has that. So if you do continue, right, that we sort of know how it works. But for every loop, you can put like a label like this. Okay, the level 1, and that label you can use when you want to break or continue. And this is like more useful when you have like multiple loops. So it's like again, but anyway, if you basically have like multiple loops, And then if you say continue level 1, this will like continue till this for loop, not, it will not stop at this one, something like that.
So actually, this one will stop both, right? Because if I say continue,
Yeah,
the
I mean
inner
it
for
will,
loop will also.
correct. Yeah, let's say if, like I'll give you, so if this is index 2, right? Now if I do continue, this will completely break, like it will completely stop out of first, what do you say, like level, if I call this level 2, right? It will completely break out of this loop, but it will continue within this loop, the outer one. I think so. Yeah, we can actually look at that, like these things that we use, right? We like, what are these special statements that we use? Continue, break, right? And then you have return and throw. So all of these are actually called something like control flow statements. Like this basically moves your code, abruptly to some other place, basically. So yeah, we can also look at how that works. Okay, and there is this one more fun thing. Okay, you can put label before any statement. Like I have written it before a for loop, but doesn't matter. Like even if I write, so this is also like technically valid. You can do this, but this level one, you cannot use it. Like even if you use it, right, it will not be, what do you say? It will not be used as such. Like it's valid to write this, but yeah, this will not be of any use. Okay, cool. So now let's actually see how that if thing runs. So, yeah, I wanna say, okay, okay. So sorry, I closed this. So if you actually see, like on the table of contents, like because this is a huge doc, right? This will actually be very helpful. Why? Let's say for each statement, it says that there are all these subsections, okay? But like most of the times, you don't want to care that much about the SS part. So SS basically means static semantics. So they will tell you mostly like what are syntax errors and usually things like that. It is like sometimes helpful, but most of the time, not something that we want to use. So we want to look at the RS, or the runtime semantics. Okay. So this is like what will happen when the if statement is actually running. Okay, cool. So let's say if we I can start this thing. If we actually compare it to our code, right? So I was just writing that hello thing for one reason. So let's say if I wrote hello here, uh, yeah. What does it mean? So our expression is hello. My statement is whatever I put within like true part, and else is whatever I put within the false part, right? What will happen in false? So how does this work? So we can already guess, right? First thing is that it has to convert this expression to a Boolean. So that's what it is doing. So it's saying evaluate the expression. Okay, so there is like one expression that will get evaluated and store the value here, expression reference. Okay, now we will actually see it in code why it's doing something like this. But now this expression reference, right? Let's say this expression was hello. This is not actually the string hello, but this is like a wrapper object. Within that object, you have the string hello. So that's why it does get value of expression reference. So now we have that string hello, and then it converts that to Boolean using toBoolean. So we can look at what toBoolean does. But before that, like in very short, right, you are seeing these things, right? Exclamation and question mark for all these operations. So what that usually means is that, so when you see a question mark before something, right, that means that this operation might return a abrupt completion. Okay, so we'll get into what that means, but very simple way of thinking is, um, this get value might sometimes give you some kind of a error. Okay, so yeah, this is just a shorthand kind of a syntax, and it's like easy to forget whatever I'm saying, right? So that is why there is also a good link. I think I put it there also. Sorry. So there is this, yes, how to, yeah. So it's like someone named Timothy Gu. He wrote this good guide called How to Read the Ecmascript Specification, right? And yeah, so that also will tell you about like how all what all these things work. I mean, question mark, exclamation. So I have put this link also. So if you get confused later on that what this thing means, you can read that part a little bit here. Okay, so we want to convert that to Boolean. So what will our hello convert to? Let's see. I mean, we know already, but let's see, right? So it says that this is like the input and this will be the output. Okay. So if my argument type is undefined, it becomes false after you convert it to Boolean. So similarly, we are looking for string. So if it says that if argument is the empty string, okay, its length is 0, then return false, otherwise return true. So now you know if you do 2 Boolean of hello, that will be actually true. Okay. So we get back here. Now my value is true. And then it says two things, right? If this expression value is true, so you can actually like click on any variable name here that will highlight you where that is being used. Okay, so if this is true, then run the first statement. So it says evaluate the first statement. So whatever is in the if part, that will get evaluated. But if this expression value is false, then evaluate the second statement. Okay, so if we again go back to our code, I think this is understandable. So if it is true, then it runs this first statement like this one. If else, then it will like run whatever you have put in the else part. Something like this. And yeah, and the other thing is that it will talk a lot about completion. Like you can see, right, it's a statement completion and then return some kind of a completion. So I guess next thing we'll look at is this completion thing. Yeah, but before that, if you have any doubts till now, anything you want to discuss?
And we can do some of the fancy stuff on the um, expression part. Like you may not use as a expression, you can do certain assignment. And like people do that mistake, right? Instead of doing double equal to or triple equal to,
Right.
they do just single equal, which works as an assignment.
True, true. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
how does the specification mention that what type of expression should be there, or it just say like only expression should be there? It doesn't check for the expression, like if it is like a assignment expression, or like a conditional expression,
Mhm.
or it is like it can be any expression.
Yeah. Yeah, this can be actually technically any expression here, right? Like expression, if I go into this, so I mean, they have a lot of these formats basically. So yeah, technically this can be any expression almost.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, but of course we know that, if you do a assignment thing that evaluates to something different versus doing that equal equals check.
Mhm. And there is one Amrish asked this, and this is a problem with putting arrow thing on conditions, because in general the arrows are translated to arrow functions, but inside block, like
Right.
this is treated as a your greater than equal to type of expression. So I think this might give error. I'm not sure. We can actually try that.
So what did you mention? I didn't get you
Uh,
complete.
so Amrish asked a question, right? What will happen if the expression is just equal to that arrow syntax?
Like basically here it will be like,
Just the arrow syntax.
oh, like this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, maybe I mistakenly typed that one. My
Okay.
question was, what if I will type just semicolon in the expression?
Oh.
I think you
Okay.
cannot type that. Yeah, yeah. It is saying here, we'll see it in other places also, but yeah, this will be a parsing error because like this is not a expression basically. That is the problem.
Oh, okay.
So,
I just saw the few minutes ago that
Oh,
it's
so
a blank statement.
that is a
You can
statement, right? Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I understand. Yeah. So
I got it.
expressions can be parts of your statement, right? So basically, if you saw a little bit earlier, anyway, I can't find it. So within that statement list, there will be something called expression statement. So basically, if you write, what do you say? If I write hello, right, that is actually valid as an expression as well as a statement. But the opposite is not true. I cannot write a statement in case of an expression, basically.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah. So, okay. So before we go into any theory stuff, right, let's do one thing. We saw how if thing runs, right? Let's try to see how our engine actually implements this. Okay. So we'll not look at like V8 or other, more popular or heavier engines. So we'll look at something called engine 262. Okay. So yeah, I put the links in a document. We can share that with everyone. But yeah, so engine 262 is basically, it says that it's an implementation of the JavaScript specification in JavaScript itself. Okay. So I mean, that of course means that you still need Node or browser or something to run this. But if you look at this, right, it says that its goal, like it's why this thing exists, is because they try to be very close to the specification. Okay, so this is not made for optimization or like performance as such, but they try to be very close to the specification as much as possible, so that you can basically run the specification in some sense, because the specification is just text, right? It can get boring, it can it might not be understandable in a lot of cases. Like if you go into more detailed syntaxes, you might feel that what is this thing even. But if you actually try to run that in code, it will be much more easier to understand sometimes. And they also use it to like sometimes try out new syntaxes, because it's JavaScript is like easy to implement new things when you get them. So let's do one thing. So I have actually set it up in my local, right? So I'll tell you still the general steps. So what I've done is I've cloned this engine 262, okay, and just run the build command that they have. So if I say, so what I've done is like ignore all the other files. That is just part of this thing. So I've just basically cloned this whole engine 262, okay, and run the build command. I think so that goes in our dist folder here. And what I'm trying to do is basically in one of my files, I try to import their distribution file and set up a basic, let's say JavaScript engine and run it. Okay. But what is this setup code, right? So if you actually go to their README somewhere here. Okay. So what happens is, let's say when anyone is using an engine or something like this, right? You can provide a few things from your host environment. Like Node can provide some of its own thing. Browser can provide something different. Okay, so these are like extra things, or these things that the host environment can provide basically. So when you set up this engine 262, so they tell you to set up all these things. Most of these things are optional, right? So I've just skipped all of that. Only thing we are inserting into the environment is a print function. If you look at this, because the problem is, right, JavaScript itself doesn't have a print or console log function. Like that thing that you use, console.log, that is actually part of our what do you say, like browser sourced environment, or even Node also provides that, right? But if we want to do this, right, if you want that, okay, if I use print or console log within JavaScript, within the code that we run here, right, if we want to see it in our actual console, we need to write this sort of a function in between. Okay, so if you see, right, it's something like this. So we see that this is the function. So whatever argument our print gets, it will use console log to print it, right? So this code that you are writing is going to run in Node or browser, so it is going to use Node's console log to print these things. And it uses this inspect function that they provide. I think, yeah, that. Okay, so that will unwrap it. So for example, what will happen is if we do print true, right? So what we get here at TMP or in the argument, that will be a wrapped object. That will be like something called, if you print true, it will be like a Boolean value within which dot value is true. So inspect basically gives you the actual object that you want, actual thing that you want to print. And finally, what we are doing is, see this print at the end of it, if you actually see it used later, so see print, we are going to use it as an expression, right? You can print and put anything within it. So this,
Sorry, Abbas, can you repeat that part about inspect?
yeah, sure. So
Would it be possible to take an example and show it?
yeah, so yeah, I'll show it an example. Okay, but yeah, overall you can say this print function that we have defined, that at the end returns undefined. Okay, so we'll see what all of this means. Let's actually run it. And yeah, this is how you insert anything into the environment. So within that global, right, we are inserting some print variable name, and this is the value. So let's see how this works. Okay, so that same thing I basically copy pasted here, and as well on these things, and like this is how you run some code. Okay, at least the basic way of running is this dot evaluate script, and then you can put any code that you want. So let's just write the simplest thing, print 1 2 3, right? So you can think like whatever code I'm writing here, that is the code that will be actually executed within the engine. And I'll put a breakpoint in my print, and I'll try to run this. Okay, hopefully I don't have a lot of breakpoints. Sorry, I put other breakpoints also. I'll just disable that. Okay, so let's run it once more. Okay, so it has stopped here, right? You can also see the stack trace. It's like little less visible, but yeah. So if you see here in print, so this is the function. In print, the argument that we got, I'll put it in console. It's very hard to see there. The argument that I got here is an array, but the first thing is a number value, right? So if I now basically do console log of that, args0, I'm actually going to send that. Yeah, sorry. So if I just do now console.log of args0, if we did that, sorry, so then it will print something like a number value, right? But that is not what we expect. When you do print of 1 to 3, 1 to 3, that's the value 1 to 3. So what inspect is doing is basically it will unwrap the value. So it will basically return you dot number of that thing. Okay, let's see what that means. So if I do inspect of args0, that will give me just this string 1 to 3, something like that. So that I can then easily pass it to console log, and that will print it. So yeah, that is what inspect does. It's their own utility that will give me the value that we normally expect, something like that. Okay, so is this understandable?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
So, Abhas, basically what args is basically an object in which the value is stored, and inspect is just inspect. What inspect does is basically get us the value from the args. Like that
Args is
string
the
value.
array actually here, but yeah, for every object within the array, that is like a wrapper object. It's not the direct value, but some object which contains that value. So inspect will basically just give us that value. Okay.
Okay. So it unwrap it basically unwraps that value for us.
Yeah, it just unwraps that value. Exactly. Yeah. If we continue this to print, so it will just print 1 2 3 in the end. That's all. So this is just our setup. Okay. So what we now want to do is whatever we are learning from the specification, we want to just write that same kind of a code here and see how it is implemented in the code. Okay. So if we do this, can I copy that thing? I just pasted the same code here, and we want to run this. And so you have to actually kind of know after this point that which file I should put my breakpoint in, right? Because this will go through a lot of files. So what is the easy way of finding that? So one way is, right, you can go to search, and whatever, if you go into the specification also, so we want to find a link between the specification and the code, right? Because else you have to find it in both places. So what they have usually done is in the comment, they have put this section ID, right? So whatever permalink you get from here, you can basically, most of the time at least, you can copy this, search it here, and yeah, you'll be able to have some, like find some file where that is implemented. Okay, so now I see that, sorry, yeah. So now I see that, anyway, that this file implements that code behind, if else. Okay, so let's actually run this. Let's actually put a breakpoint here. I'll go back to my file. What's the shortcut for running something here? Not sure. Will this work? Okay, yeah. So I think we have stopped here. So I'll let it go. So because we have put a breakpoint here, right? It's stopping within this file. If you see again, if statement.js. And what is this expression now, right? It should be the hello that we put. How do we see that? Expression. Within that also you can see, but I think it has some method. Yeah, dot source text. I can call that and see it directly. Okay, so that way I can verify that, okay, what is this thing that I'm going to run. And what I think they actually use behind the scenes is the parser that they use is Acorn. So this nodes or everything that you see, right, that you can also see by using something like what is it called, AST Explorer or something. So again, I'll probably not go into it here, but you can paste some code here, choose your parser here, and see what the nodes will look like. So if you go back to our code, this expression is, oops, why is it like this? Anyway, the expression is my string hello basically. And we said, right, if you look at the spec also, it says that this will give you an expression reference. So what is this expression reference? So if you look at the console again, expression reference is the completion, fine, normal completion, but within that value, we have this string value, like string hello. Okay, so when you do get value, then it again basically unwraps the string. Okay, so if we actually go in here, our get value, and try to go out. Oops, yeah, we ran over that again. I'll just restart this. Sorry. Okay. Okay.
Abbas,
So, yeah.
you just, which page, can you share the link for the page you just showed where you can see the expressions?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
ST Explorer.
Yeah, ST Explorer. I can add that.
I will share. You
Yeah.
can continue.
Okay. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to go into what happens in Boolean. So this is also going to work. So I'll just search. I want to stop in that file. Boolean. So put a breakpoint here. That way it's easier. Okay. So this expression reference, we want to see what happens when you do Boolean. So see, the argument that we got is the string hello, and we'll see that same kind of table that we saw earlier, right? That if input is something, it will give you some output. So they have just implemented it as a switch case. So if I go in here, see it goes into a case string, and there this is basically just they're getting the string dot length effectively, and if that is 0, then it will be false. But in our case, it should not be false. So it will go into this value.true. So one of the things that they do is, right, they don't actually return, the true that we have in JavaScript directly. They always sort of wrap it into something. Okay. So that way it's easy for them to distinguish between like what is the, like what is the value of the code they are running versus what is their own code, something like that. Okay. So this will give us true, right? So if we go back here, effectively our hello got converted to true. Again, you can see that here.
I have just one question here.
Yeah.
You mentioned about they convert it into a AST tree, and all of this expression statement and alternate statement. These are AST nodes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. This is
I'm
AST node.
asking. These are AST node only, right?
Correct. Correct. Yeah. This expression that you see, right? That
Okay,
same
this
thing
is
you will
AST
see
node.
in AST
Okay,
Explorer also. Huh.
got.
Yeah. Cool. And okay, so let's continue. And this is how they have implemented else part. So that else part they have put into this thing called alternate statement. Okay, we can again see what the alternate statement is. Uh, so, yeah. So that is just our false body. Okay, so what they're implementing here is they're implementing that diversion, like you might have just if or if else. Okay, so that is the case they're checking. So if alternate statement equal to null means we have only the if body. Fine, so that is not our case actually, or is it our case? Okay, sorry, not equal to null means we have the else body. Yeah, so okay, so what it does is if my expression value is true, yes it is true, hello is true, then it will evaluate my first statement. Okay, we can again see that my statement that they're running is basically the true part of the body. Okay, and they will run that and get some statement completion, and whatever statement, so statement will go into completion record anyway later. Why does it throw? Okay, we read something wrong anyway. Oh, I used console.log. Okay, got it, that's right. So anyway, so whatever you got from the true part, they will return that same kind of a completion record. Okay, so anyway we have let it go. So yeah, one mistake I made here is we cannot actually use console.log in this environment because there is no console object as such, so you have to use like print. Okay, so if we actually run this thing once more, we should be able to see in the console those values. Can I clear this? Okay. So by now we run this, you should see true. And similarly, if this is an empty statement, we should just see false, something like this. Okay. So questions till now?
I think I got it. Any questions, folks?
Okay.
And all of those implementation are part of the file where you put breakpoint was part of engine 262, right?
Yes, true, true. Yeah. So these all files that I'm putting the breakpoint in, these are part of that code base only. Yeah. So you can see like it's within source runtime. Yeah.
So in specs, I have seen they define some interfaces. What are those interfaces? This is like if you go on MDN doc,
Mm-hmm.
they they have some of the things. I'll share the
Yeah,
link.
I can send the
You
link.
can connect. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean interfaces. I'll have to check actually. So one thing I've seen, right, that they implement is this two boolean that you are seeing, right? So of course this is an internal method. Okay, so they call this as a abstract method. So if you actually see in the table of contents, it says abstract operations. Okay, so these are basically, you can say like, these are helper methods that they have defined. You cannot directly call this two boolean in JavaScript, but yeah, these are the things that spec uses within itself so that, you don't have to like repeat the same code everywhere.
I got a silly question, Abbas. So what is
Yeah.
the ID which you're using here?
This one, VS Code.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, this thing, you can actually put like use
Yeah.
debugger directly within VS Code. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Yeah, Sudhanshu, you are sending that?
No, no, you can continue. I will share you.
Yeah, okay, cool. So we'll go into one more, I guess, little boring part, but this is important. Okay, this you will see everywhere in the spec itself. Uh, like everything that you run, okay, any statement, any expression that you run, that gives you a completion, and the story using something called completion record. So record, at least in this case, it's an internal data structure, you might say. Okay, so where they store these things. But if you have to sort of compare it to a JavaScript, of course you don't have this record directly in JavaScript, but you have to compare. Then it is basically like a key value thing. Okay, so these are the keys and this will be the values. So you have a type where it's one of these things. So what you get normally is normal. So normal is basically like if I write 2 plus 2, okay, it's 4. So it will basically give me a completion of type normal, and value, my value will be 4. 2 plus 2 just give me that. But if I use any of these statements, so if I use return, right? So within a function, if I now do return 5, right? Then this will be a completion record of type return and my value will be 5. Okay. So normal is sort of what you return when you don't do anything. Don't do anything like, break, continue, return or throw. But if you do any of this break, continue, return or throw, then this, flow is a little bit different. Okay. Um, Yeah, and these are the basically 2-3 things within the completion record. So you have the type, you have normal, and all the other non-normal types is often referred to as abrupt completion. So you'll see that in other places. If it says that, if my C1 completion record is an abrupt completion, then do something else. So abrupt completion means you have basically done one of these things within that code. Okay, and
The code will become syntax error, right? Not syntax, runtime error.
This all of this.
The abrupt completion.
No, not really. So that is interesting. It sounds like a syntax error. It just means that they will take a little bit different flow. What I mean is, let's say you have a statement, right? We saw like block statement. You have in block statement, you have like console log 1, console log, maybe like console log 1. After that you do something return, right? And then you have console.log 3. So what happens is that when you uh, get that second statement, this returns a return completion type, right? And then what will happen is that that block which is running all the code one by one, they will say that if I get an abrupt completion, I don't want to continue running my own code. So the block will not run the third line, which is after return, but it will forward the same completion. Okay, so it will tell to its parent that, okay, I got a return completion record of this. And if its parent is not a function, they will do the same thing. Okay, so everyone does this thing, that if I get an abrupt completion, I clean up myself, I don't run anything else after this line, and I forward it to my parent, right? And then what happens is finally it should reach some kind of a function, and then that function will say that, okay, I know how to deal with return completion records, so I will take the value that you have gave me in return, but I will instead return a normal completion record of that same value. Okay, so I think like it sounds confusing because I say return and return completion.
Basically, runtime error would be a throw type completion record.
Yeah, it will be something like that, throw, and you'll have some like you'll have some syntax error or something like that.
Got it.
And if you see this third thing, right, target. So the target is for those continue and break. So if you do continue level 1, this target contains that string level 1 or something like that. And this is actually quite interesting, right? I mean, I think it will be hard to show by running this code, but at least we can talk about it like theoretically a little bit, right? So simple thing. What does this thing return? 2 plus 2. This is an expression. So that makes sense. This will basically give me a completion of normal and value is 4. Fine. But my statements also return something, which is very interesting. So if I did this, something, true or hello, whatever. If I did this or anything else also. So now what will happen is this if else whole thing will run, but it will return true. Okay. Or if this was empty, this will actually internally return a completion record of type false. But you might think, right, why is this useful? Like I cannot use this. I cannot do like this, right? This is this is not valid syntax. So why is this useful? So one thing is, at least currently what we have is, if I actually put this in a eval, you will see that eval has a return value. So if I just do node and put this one thing into eval,
You might have to use backticks.
yeah, right. How do I do it here? Sorry.
Just use the template little, so you'll.
Okay. So like eval and then like this, right?
Yeah, this.
Okay. Yeah, nice. So now if I run this, we can, so we'll see that it returns true. I mean, technically this can also be something else, right? This can be like whatever, but this is not like it's not returning the actual value of this. So what can I say? It can be like hello. This can be like world, right? Just to demonstrate that it is actually returning this string itself. And yeah, now if I try to run this, what will happen? Oh, so that gets added there. Oops. It's hard to edit. Okay. Yeah, but I think it should be runnable here also. Anyway. Yeah. So this eval actually returns me that value of world. So all kind of statements also return a completion record, usually with type normal and some kind of a value. And if you basically go back to what we saw here, what is that link anyway? Sorry about that. So if you actually see this code, right, it said that if expression value is true, then evaluate this or else evaluate that. But it was also returning that same thing. See, if else itself is returning that thing. It is doing some of these things internally, right? It will make sure that, okay, if there is no return, it will put some undefined or something. But generally speaking, this will return whatever your true or body returned.
So if we wrap that inside a function and we call that function, the return type would still be undefined, right? Like if you wrap this whole if thing inside a function.
Got it. So you're saying that like this, right?
Yeah. If you call ABC, it would still be undefined.
Yeah, I think this will still be undefined. Yeah, because you have to then see. Yeah, 1 second.
I think here what would happen, you have to call the ABC as well.
Oh, true. Okay, so. Yeah.
So the completion record for function is still undefined because you are not returning. Only the if the completion record of if else was hello or world, but not the function.
True. Yeah. So the return of this part was hello or world, right? But then what you have to do is we have to look at what a block statement does. Okay. So will my block statement return the same completion that I got from the last thing? So it probably doesn't do that. Okay. So that is the thing. So yeah. And I was talking about also completion records, right? So what if I do this? I mean, I can write it directly also, but let me remove this. So what if I do this within else or anything else, anything, I do return 1, 2, 3, right? So how this works is your if, it will like function will go into if, if we'll say that it is false, so it go into this part, and then this statement, this thing, this will return something of like, it will say that my thing is return completion type and my value is 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that is what it will say. Now, what is its parent, right? So its parent is this block statement. Now my block statement will say that I don't know what to do with this abrupt completion. I don't know how to handle this. So I'll return the same thing to my parent. Okay, so its parent is, so to say, if, right? Again, if says that I don't know how to handle this, to the function it will return the same completion type. Now a function will say that I know how to handle a return completion type. So what I will do instead, right? This is like when your function is being called. What I will do instead is I'll return the same value, but my completion type now becomes normal. Sorry, normal. So now whoever is outside the function, right? Now if I did console.log of this function, so now console.log doesn't have to think about return. So return got basically converted into normal. So it got handled by the function. So yeah, something like this. Okay, and this is like very similar to what happens in also other cases. Let's say if I did throw 1, 2, 3, right? It will go in the same way. It will go up, up, up. But if we had try catch, that could have caught the throw and returned something else. But because we don't have try catch, so that will go to the outermost thing, and then your browser or your engine will show some uncaught error saying that I got this error. So that is the thing.
That actually completely makes sense. Like the parent block, see if it can handle the return, like whatever the record we are returning. What was the name for that? And if it can't handle it, then it will move it to the parent. So that's why throw goes till it finds any try catch.
Yeah, true.
Makes sense.
And like, so in some sense, right, we don't think of it in that way, but in some sense, all of them work in the same way. So your throw, your, what is it, break, continue. Okay, so they'll go up, up, up till someone knows how to handle that.
Is promise also work in that way? Like promise catch or returns a completion record?
Yeah, I'm not sure actually. I have not checked how promises work internally. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I would think that works differently because you can do dot catch everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And actually, you see also if I go back to if else, right? So now you might get more idea about what this thing was doing. Okay. So see, in my if I can put any expression, right? So I can literally just write, something that throws, right? Yeah, I can call a function which throws something. Okay, I can do that within my expression. So what this question mark basically means is, I'll actually go to that document because they have written in the best way. They have defined somewhere here. Sorry. Yeah, so you can see these. So it is something like this, that when you like the concise form is a question mark. So when you use a question mark, it will try to do that thing. But if it is abrupt, right? If the completion type is not normal, then it will break out of its own flow. So if I go into that definition, I guess, should be able to see. Okay. Yeah, return if abrupt. So it says that whenever you see somewhere it's return if abrupt, that means this thing, that if my argument is abrupt completion, then return that argument. And return here works in the same way as our own return. So if says that I return that completion record, that means that nothing else in that if logic will run anymore. else what it says is that if it is not abrupt completion, then take out the value out of that. So yeah, can we actually run this? I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure how to run that, but yeah, you can basically, I guess, check it later on. But so let's say if I do 2 plus 2, right? So it will just give me the value directly. But if it is abrupt completion, then it will end all the steps. Like it will not do anything else. It will forward that.
Mhm.
Okay.
About that, I have a question.
Yeah.
If we put an if condition, if we put an if we put an if condition, if we put a function inside an if condition and throws from that function, what you are saying is that it will not evaluate any value and it will just move out of the flow.
True. Yeah, in the sense that if I called something here, foo, right, which effectively does some throw, then it will, what is it? Yeah. So then it will, not even run this or this.
Okay. So returning, encountering a throw will be an abrupt completion.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we talked a lot about these things, and there's also this interesting thing. Okay, so this is a proposal called do expression. Like we talked about this completion record and how eval gives you the value, right? So if this proposal lands, then you'll be able to do this kind of interesting things. Okay, so sometimes we have this problem, right? You want to set like something. I'll show you, right? So we do this, right? A equal to, and then we put some condition, right? If it is true, then something else, or else something, right? But this becomes very complicated if you have like too many if else, like too many conditions like this, right? It becomes very hard to read. And what do we do then? Then we break it into two parts, right? You will declare let a later and then put a if else, right? Because now it is easier to read. But you'll also face some problems. Like if you want to define this thing as a const, then you cannot break it anymore, right? If you break it, you have two sort of places where you might assign it, like you cannot do this basically, right? You can't do const and then assign it later, so that doesn't work. So what this do expression suggests is that you can write do and then write statements. Okay, whatever that statement returns will be the value. Within this you can write if foo, then return something. You don't even have to write return. You can just do this. So this is basically same thing. Like, of course, this is not valid now. This has to actually like be implemented and land. But yeah, if this lands, then you will be able to use the same kind of value that eval returns, but assign it to something. You'll be able to use the same value in your own code. So, yeah.
This is interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So I also didn't know like why statements return this completion record. Okay. So I'll tell you, like, I understand like our discussion is just like within if else, but I'll tell you like what you can do when you get stuck somewhere, right? So we have that link somewhere here, somewhere later, I guess. So there is this IRC channel that they have. Okay. This one only. Yeah. So there is this IRC channel hash TC39. So if you join that channel, you can basically like most of the members here, all of these members here, right? You see, all of them are actually TC39 delegates. So they can like easily answer, why that is the case. Like I think I only asked here like why do statements, you know, return this thing completion record, and that's when they said like okay, you can use it in eval, or else like that guy himself is doing that do proposal, so or else like I am writing this proposal where that will be useful. Yeah, very interesting. Okay, so it's like what, already 1 hour. We can go into one of these things. Okay, so we can either go into functions or arrays. What should we do, Sudhanshu?
Um, let give 5 minutes to let people ask anything. Till now, any doubts or any specific thing you want to go in depth on whatever we have discussed, or we can actually see then how the function thing works. It would be similar as how we saw the if thing, but yeah, like function have more context on it.
Avas, I just wanted to ask you, like in the in the TC9, like the in the syntax, you can see that after every, for example, like after every equality expression and all, there is something called as like the question mark, and then in question mark yield, question mark await. So is this just saying the same thing, that if this expression yields or awaits or in, then it will be handled in?
No. Yeah, I understand
What's
what
that?
you're asking. Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you tell me where you found that? I can just
I think it's everywhere. Like if you
everywhere.
go to if you go to if, or if you go to
Yeah,
anything that
like this
says
way.
expression, yeah, this one, yes.
Yeah. So I understand, like I can tell you why this is there, right? But I can't tell you when exactly this is used. So this is like
Okay.
part of the extra thing that they have added to their grammar. Okay. So again, you can basically go to this notational convention and read. So what this I think sort of means is that it, like these are optional things. Okay. It means that it can be element list or element list underscore yield, element list underscore await. Okay. So it basically means that it can also have these two other, what do you say, versions or something like that. And and they have all these things, right? Okay. So you will see, so there is this plus and question mark, right? So I read it once, I didn't understand it completely. So it meant something like this. If you see, yeah, I guess it means something like this. Okay. So if you see it here, right? So what it means is if array literal has a yield, then this thing also has a yield. Okay, something like that. So whatever I'm defining, that will also have that same thing. So it will say yield and await, and here it will also say yield and await. So it will mean something like this. If my array literal has a await, then my element list can also have a await. Yeah, but
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, it's like saying ki if the parent has an await, then the child can have an await, but if the parent does not, the child cannot.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. But yeah, within that they also have some version plus and everything. So yeah, you have to actually check a little bit, but it means overall something like that.
So here the question mark does not mean the abrupt condition operator.
No, oh no. So this is
Okay.
different again. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
Yeah. So honestly, like this grammar is, you can get like a some idea of what they're trying to say, but if you try to understand all the cases, then it will be sometimes a little bit complicated. Like, yeah.
What is in?
Yeah, I don't know, honestly.
So the plus looks like that it will have this and it can have this.
Yeah, I think
But I don't know.
people are interested. There is this notational convention, and there they put a lot of things. I don't even understand. Yeah, so they'll basically teach you like what all they are doing. Okay, something like this you can understand it. OPT means optional, so it means this thing is optional. Yeah, that much I understand.
I have a question, Namas. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, how long you have been reading the specification and how it has helped you, like, in learning, the other JavaScript. So,
Yeah.
and why you have this habit of reading the specification in detail? Like, I know you're just started.
Yeah. Sometimes like I thought that okay, I'll just try to read it, right? And then I found that document that I showed you, right? Like Timothy who he wrote that document. So from that I was able to understand a little bit. So why did I learn stuff? I thought okay, I will see like how this is. Oh, so yeah, I think I had this question. I forgot almost. So I had this question, right? How does for plus let work, right? Uh, like we use this thing, right? You have that common problem for late, and then you have set timeout. like you want to print this index value after.
Actually, let's ask this question to everyone. Then it will be a little bit fun.
Yeah.
Let versus where.
We'll write that code again, index 5 something, and set. We already know this code, right? Everyone knows that. Set timeout and what? Something, right? Console log index. Yeah. You already get the idea. You'll print it after some. And why does this, like, why is it different for where and why is it different for let? This was the thing.
I think like I'll take a shot. Like if you put a where in a for loop, then the scope is the enclosing function scope, and the value I will be declared only one. The value index will be declared only one type in only one time in the enclosing scope. If you do let, then if you run the loop 5 times, there are 5 different scopes, so there will be 5 different execution contexts, and the value index inside the set timeout will have closure over 5 different values of index in the 5 different execution contexts, and that's why it prints 5 different values of index.
I have a question on the same thing. Like, if that is a case, how we are able to increment that variable if index has a different scope on each iteration, how we are able to
so I saw a video from Jay Karchland that mentioned that what it does is basically it creates a value of index and then copy it to the execution context, and then copies that value, that copies the final value of index back to the previous execution context, so that's why it maintains that value of index.
Exactly.
That was a fun video. I had to watch it 5 times to understand.
Yeah.
Let me set that up for loop.
Yeah. So yeah, if someone didn't get that, right? Okay. So because we're anyway wasting time, right? Let's talk about how this thing works, I guess.
I'm also interested to know how this and we have that on agenda, right? How this and arguments are added on function.
Yeah, we can cover that a little bit. I mean, arguments is still a little bit okay, but yeah, this is interesting how that is added basically. So yeah. I just want to have. Someone said something.
No.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, there is actually. I think we'll take a lot of time discussing this. So there is this nice video by Jay Karchland.
I've said.
Okay. Yeah. That is also very interesting how this thing works. Like we know that overall how it works, but internally how it works is quite interesting. Okay. So basically this kind, like I wanted to know that, okay, how does this work? Like I was sort of not satisfied with the answer. So I thought, okay, can I try to read the spec and figure out? So yeah, that's how I guess I started. And how long I've been reading? Few months. Yeah. Okay. So we'll get back.
I think knowing about the completion record thing is important, because now we can understand how that the whole thing cascades up, like how the error bubbles up when you do return, why things break. So all of those things are cleared right now. So I feel that completion record thing is something which people should know.
And also I'll show you a fun example, right? So that question, like if someone was in that JavaScript meetup last time, yeah, Sunny Puri, he was asking a few questions like this trivia sort of questions, right? So yeah, so one of the things is like what happens if you write this thing basically. So you have try and you can put finally, right? The question was that if I return 1 here, and like let's say there is a outer function, that's not a problem. And if I return 2 here, then like what will get returned? Okay. Yeah. So that's when I thought that, okay, I'll again find this from the spec itself, right? And I'll show you what it says. That will also give you more idea about this thing, completion record. Okay. See, it's very small. Just look at this part. So it says try and then a block and then some finally, fine. So it will first evaluate block. Okay. So notice that it doesn't do that question mark kind of thing. So whatever block returns, like it's a throw or a normal or a return, anything it does, it will still continue to the next step. Okay, and then it evaluates finally. So this means that this and this will always evaluate and then see what it does. Okay, so finally give us some return completion in F. My block gave me some return in B. So this is, let's say, return 1, and this is, let's say, return 2. So it says if F dot type is normal, set F to B. Okay, and then return F. What that means is if F dot type is not normal, so if my finally returned anything, if my finally throw anything, any of that, then don't do this, just return F itself. But if my finally didn't do anything, if finally is just like 2 plus 2, right, then actually return the B, actually return what block returned. So if you basically think of that in code perspective, right, what that means is run this and store this completion record. Let's say this is C1. Run this, store the completion record. This is C2. And if my C2 is normal, if C2 is normal, then return C1, else return C2. Okay. So that means is if I return from both places, my finally wins. Even if I throw here in my try, right, then still my finally wins. If my finally does no return or anything like that. But if my finally doesn't do anything, let's see here, I'll be doing console.log in finally. Then what will happen is this will run, this will also run. So in the console, we will see in finally, but after that, it will still throw this. Because my type in C2 is normal, then it will actually return C1. So yeah. So this is one of those things, basically, that try didn't, like, just because I got a throw here, it didn't move it up to its parent. It ran both the things and forwarded which one it felt was like necessary. Basically. Yeah, and similar kind of thing you can see also here, right? If you see try catch, what it will do is it will evaluate the thing within try, and if the completion type of that try is throw, then only it will evaluate my catch. If not, then it will like return whatever we returned. Okay.
Yeah.
These are, let's say, done for now. And yeah, so then she was saying like, how does that this work, right, within our functions?
This and arguments, yes.
This and arguments, correct. Okay, cool. So which one of these are important? Sorry, ordinary function create. I'll see if that. Yeah, I think I'll find this in code itself. Okay, so I'll take this small shortcut, right? So I'll tell you that if I create, if I create a function in any way, like arrow function or normal function, it will always end up in this method. Okay. And after that, we can write some code and see what happens. Okay. So want to write, yeah. So I'll do function something f1. This will be, let's say, a normal function, and here we do console log, and so function declaration. That's what I want to write. And let's say there is a let's say there is an arrow function also, right? Because there it will work differently over this. Okay, now I just want to, you can run it or not run it, both are okay. But anyway, so if we do this, what will happen? Move the other things. Okay. and stopped here. We'll go inside. So you can look at also a stack trace, but what is happening here is that this is for the first function. Okay, if we check the body, we'll understand. It is trying to create the first function. So if I do body.sourceText, it says this thing. Okay, function f1 console log declaration. Cool. So is it here? Yeah, it's here. Cool. Also, if you check somewhere else, okay, yeah, we have to check where this function is getting called. So in case of a declaration, right, this is the something called, there is something called this mode internally, like a, you might say internal variable. Okay, so in case of a normal function, it says non-lexical this here. Okay, so if I go to my ordinary function create, so this will create like some function object. Can I go here? 1 minute. So I want to go here. So it will take out that this mode that we got, okay, and set on the function, it will set this internal property called this mode. So if you basically give an arrow function, then this is lexical. And if you don't give an arrow function, right, then this is either strict or global. So that will depend on your function's use strict. So if you use like use strict, like if you're in strict mode, basically your function declaration will be strict. That will get this mode strict. But if you have like a normal function with no strict mode, then this mode will be global. So this is what is happening during my function creation. Okay. In fact, we can also show this on the specification side also. That might also be interesting. Where is it? So let's see. Search, I guess here. Can I just search for function? So it will be, I think I'll be able to reach there. I think I put the link somewhere. Declaration. Oh yeah, this one. Okay, so here they talk about function and what it contains internally. So this internal slot, whatever they are saying, you can again think of them as some internal property. And the one we are interested in is this mode. Okay, so it says the value can be one of these three things. And yeah, just take some time and like read this part. So I'll try to summarize that. What it is basically saying is that, why can't I see this? Sorry, I'll just make this smaller. Okay. Okay. So what it is basically saying is that if this thing is lexical, right? Basically, if this is an arrow function, then this will refer to my, outer function basically. Now, this is not technically correct. This can refer to your, outer global or your like scope environment or, so what do you say? Sorry. It can refer to your module environment also, right? Basically, you can say that the outer thing might be a function or a global, but in case of arrow function, it will be lexical, which means this will be taken from outside. If it is a normal function and if you use strict, right, then it will be, the value will be strict. Strict means that whatever these value you pass, right, so you can call a function directly or you can do dot call, right? So in both of them, this value get passed, and whatever you passed in there, that will be exactly used, like that is the same exact value that will be used. And then there is global. So this is like for normally, if you write a function, you don't use strict mode, none of that. Then what happens is, if this that you have passed or which gets like implicitly passed, if you do that, and if it is undefined or null, okay, then this gets replaced with global. But if it is some other this value, then that gets passed, like it gets converted to object and passed. I'll show you what that means in code. Right? This is little. So if I just write a normal function ABC, you can do like console.log this within it. Okay, so yeah, just pop quiz. What will happen if someone can say?
It will point to global if it is not a strict mode.
Yeah, true. Right. So if we run this, it gave us global. Nice. So this is what in this case, right? My this mode was global. But how did this work? We'll again see this in code. But when you do this, when you call ABC like this is similar to writing abc.call and your custom this value is undefined. These two are similar. Okay. And if you remember what you saw there, it says that if the this that you have passed in, if that is undefined or null, then it gets replaced with global. So in this case, like node global or window object, that is what you will get, right? What that also means is if I explicitly call ABC with null, okay, it still gets replaced with global. So if I run this thing, right, I still got global, same thing. But if I of course passed in something else, and then they said one more thing, it will get converted to an object. What that means is if I pass in a primitive here, run this, what I actually got is that number, wrapped object, not 1 2 3 directly. Yeah, but of course you will understand that if I do if I pass in a normal object, that would be fine. If I do this, then this will be fine. This will not get wrapped or anything. So yeah, so this is basically our this mode global. But now if you put like use strict, then it will be like called strict internally, and then this replacement will not happen. Okay, so now if I call it with null, I think this should be strict mode, right? Yeah, now I am getting null correctly. Same thing for undefined, same, like this is also going to pass undefined, so it will also work. And before arrow function, last thing is this can be also on a method, right? Like if I put this ABC in a method, right? I don't know, I'm just putting something I put. So if you call something like this now, foo.abc, if it this is again you can see, but this will internally call it property reference. So if it basically looks like this, some object and then dot some property name, if you're trying to call this, then this is actually equivalent to doing, you're basically calling foo.abc, but this that you are passing in this case is foo. Okay, so we'll see that same thing. Now if I run this and it yeah, it doesn't matter in this case if it is strict or not, then my this value will be basically foo, because that will get implicitly passed in. So I'll see that here, abcf, and my name was like this whole object. So this is for normal functions, but what if this was a arrow function instead? If I use arrow function, again strict mode doesn't matter, my this mode will be now lexical. Okay, and if this happens, then okay, this is hard to explain because like indirectly my this will now be global, but you can also understand like this is actually my outer this. So yeah, so basically if you did this within a function or within a class, right, then this will print the outer this. So if I now call foo, sorry, abc, for now of course it will print or what is it printing? Oh, interesting. Yeah, I thought it would print something else. Okay.
Yeah, I also thought it would print a global.
Yeah. Wow.
No, actually, it's in module. It's in module, so it's a it's
Oh,
not a, global, right?
right,
The
right. Yeah.
test.js is a module.
Correct. Yeah. True, true. That can be the case, like it is giving the module or something.
Hmm.
Yeah, makes sense.
Probably if you run this on
Yeah,
Chrome, it would print a window.
that makes
Chrome
sense.
table.
Can I do that? Wow.
It didn't print and
But it didn't print anything, or what happened?
this is time to look this spec.
Yeah. Why is it not working?
Yeah,
Yeah, I was
let's
not.
look a spec. I think this must be defined on the spec, right? That if
Yeah, yeah. It will say that, and in fact, like we can actually look at that. Whatever logic we just told, right? We can also look at that in the code. Mm, 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 mm. One second. Yeah, so that this mode we are saying, right, that will basically get set when you are creating the function, right? There are two steps. That function gets created, and then you later call that function. But like, so till now what you have understand is like, okay, my this mode will get set. So it will be lexical, strict, or global when that function is being created, right? So you can basically think that ABC is basically an object which has this, internal variable or property this mode, whose value will be something like that. Okay. Now we have to see what happens when I call ABC, right? That is the part you want to check. Like, how will this mode get used? So yeah, let me show that part. Yeah. Okay. And also I think we can show this in the spec also. Okay. So basically when we can show that somewhere else, but yeah, whenever you, yeah, this is the main thing. Cool. Got this. Okay. So when you call a function, right, this is the internal thing that gets called internal method, or might say abstract method that gets called. Okay. So it does a lot of things. So for function it will create a new scope and all of that. But one of the steps in there, if you notice, is that it will do this ordinary call bind this, right? So whenever you are calling something, it gets two things, your this and your arguments. So it is going to use this value that you have passed, this argument, and somehow bind it. Let's see what it does. So it says if my this mode is lexical, so if I have an arrow function, then just return, then don't bind anything. Okay. So if it is an arrow function will get its own scope and everything, but don't put any extra this value in there. Okay. Don't do anything. What happens in the else? It says that if it is strict, right? If you have used strict, then this value is same as whatever you passed in this argument. Okay. So we'll see this value will get used later on. Okay. So it is, if it is strict, then use the same thing. But if my this argument is undefined or null, right? So if it was like called directly, or if we did dot call with undefined or null, then do this thing. Basically this, set this value equal to global env dot global this value. So like that will depend on my node or browser. So this will be the global value. So that is the thing. These are the three cases: lexical, strict, and the other thing, what is it called? Yeah, so global. Yeah, so these are the three cases, right? Now what is the last thing it will do? It has figured out what this value to use, right? It had figured out this value that it will use. And finally, this value will be sent here. It will do local environment dot bind this value and send this thing. Okay. Now, if you want to see what bind this value does, let's actually run this thing in the code and see. Okay. So same thing we have here, right? Whatever logic you saw in the spec, you can basically see that same thing here. If it is lexical, do this. If it is strict, do this. And if it is global, then do something like this. Okay. Cool. So what I want to see now is what happens in bind this value. What does that actually do? Let's run some function to do a simple thing. F1, it's fine. I want to call F1. Okay. I hope this will work. So if I run this, it will stop here. Oops. This is the function creation part. So see, if you actually see this, in this case, my this mode will be global, I think. Yeah, my this mode will get set to global. So this is the function creation part, right? This is fine. So I got an object within which my this mode is global. But okay, what happens in case of calling this? Did I not do this? Okay. Oh, I have to enable it here. Sorry. So my function got created, and then my function is getting called, and it will move into this. So this is the whole call logic, I guess. And one part of that is binding this value. If we go within that, you will see the same kind of thing, that this variable will get set. It will be, if it is lexical, see, if it is lexical, then it would have returned right now. So it will not bind any this thing, any this value. Same thing. My this mode is not strict, it is global, but if it was strict, then this value will be same as whatever we passed in. Okay, so see, we called it normally, so the value is undefined, if you can actually see it. Okay, or else, because my this argument is undefined, it will go into this, and it will basically set my this value to global. So my this value is now global, like a big object. Now what is it doing? This is the part I'm interested. What does environment record dot bind this value? What does this do? So if we go inside this, you will see this. This is the basic thing. So your function gets an environment record, like a scope, you might say, right? And within the scope, there is a special thing called this value. Okay. So within the scope, this value will get set, right? And whenever you write this dot something within your function, whenever you try to access this value, it will actually fetch it from the environment record and use that. Okay. So this is the thing. But in case of arrow function, what will happen is this thing will not get set. So it will look from the outer environment records this value and use that value instead. So yeah, this is how this thing works.
And in functions, there is one more thing we can do, which we shouldn't do, is like the arguments are mapped to the current scope. So argument doesn't hold the value of local variables. It holds the reference to the name itself. So if you write a function, and then if you have a local variable, let's say a on that, and in that inside the function body, if you say like a equal to 2, then the value of a would change. Can you just write?
Yeah. You mean like this, whatever function, and basically my arguments 0, I'll have something, right? If I call, you're saying, okay, I'll call this a, something like this. So initially a is, and then if I do a equal to something,
so argument 0 would change.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So it doesn't hold the primitive values. It holds the reference of the local scope
Understood. Yeah. True.
We probably have to later look into spec why this happened, but
Yeah.
this is one like there is a ESLint rule to avoid this, but
Okay.
yeah, and in use a strict mode this doesn't happen. If you do a strict mode, the argument will remain intact with whatever value you are passing, but in non-strict mode this will get replaced.
Yeah. In fact, I think I found some section, but I wasn't actually able to understand it. Like now you are saying that, okay, then it makes more sense to me. So see, this is the section, right? There are apparently two type of arguments, like mapped arguments and unmapped arguments.
So probably in non-strict mode, it would be mapped argument, and in that it would be not mapped argument.
Yeah, if you actually see it here, it says something like this.
If it's
Like
true.
some.
Okay, so there is a immutable binding and there is a mutable binding.
And after that also they will do this thing, right? If you see here, see if strict is true or if simple parameter list is false. So I think they have written it somewhere above. Okay, I'll just go up. So you can, is it this thing? Okay, no, sorry. I think it was written somewhere else. Basically, where is it? Simple parameter list means if you use dot, right? So that then it will not be simple.
Oh, okay.
If you use that rest
if you use rest, then it will not be a simple parameter list.
Yeah. So basically, if it is strict is true, or if you use that rest, then it will do what you said, like unmapped. See, this is unmapped. Else it is doing mapped. So this might be the thing. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we should wrap this on this thing only. We'll open last 5-10 minutes for people to talk about anything, about whatever we discussed or anything in general.
Yeah, true.
Anyone awake?
Yeah, hello. Hi. Yeah.
Hi.
Okay. Or if we don't have any thing to discuss more on, we can probably wrap this up.
I mean, I think one final comment, like, so I used to read this book, the JavaScript.info. I used to find this mode, especially in that type conversion. I was not able to understand what is this mode. So now I find a source where to look for more actually. I think this will really help me just to understand. So, I mean, if I read, I think there is a specific section in the JavaScript.info. It's very hard to understand what exactly the type value conversion happens, how it happens actually. They're just given an abstract version of it. So now I find a full source here, I think. So did you try any other compiler, like, or this is only, I mean, sorry, the JavaScript engine, or how is it? I mean, or this is an easy one?
Yeah, this is the easiest one. I haven't actually, I tried the other ones. Yeah.
So the easy thing about this is the implementation of those all semantics are in JavaScript. So you can actually understand the code, why certain conditions are happening, why certain behaviors are happening.
Yeah, that is even added advantage.
And
any reason why it is called 262? Because I've been seeing even the specification also they listed 262, and there was one more specification also, which was there in the TC39 website you showed earlier.
I think basically it's just the Ecmascript organization, right? So they get lot of specifications, so they just like number it one by one. So this TC39, right? That's the 39th technical committee. So that's why I'm guessing like ECMA 262 is like same thing.
Oh, are there only 39 people in the
committee? No. This is a 39th committee under ECMA, under the whole organization. Yeah.
Okay.
In Engine 262 repo, can we find the code of the array method and object method also?
Yeah, you can find that, right? So let's say, not going into the exact details, right? But how do you find something? You want to look at array something, right? One thing is if the name is very easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Saying something.
Here I found it, but in Engine 262 repo.
Right. So let's say which method you're looking for, let's say.
He's
Let's say
mentioning
that
about
one.
the file on the engine 262.
Got it. So let's just, for example, I find array.concat, right? So I can
Yeah.
copy this permalink, right? This ID.
Yeah.
And I can usually find it here. Usually, like not always maybe, but yeah. Let's say I find it here. So
This
yeah. And if you actually don't find it, right, you can even raise a PR for them, like, because this is one of the mottos, like you should be able to go between two sides, sort of.
Thanks.
And one thing is in VS Code, right, because there is some MJS syntax, for some reason VS Code doesn't support it, so you cannot actually like command click. Okay, it will not work. You have to like go to that file manually and see.
So that stands for module, is it like JS module or something?
Which one?
The .mjs extension.
Yeah, yeah, I think.
Yeah, this is the for the module support, without any compiler, Babel or anything. Node support MJS format. You can't use JS import with .js. There was some discussion going around that it should support JS. I'm not sure if that supports right now, but the MJS extension came for that module JS. So this is natively supported by Node.
Okay, good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where is? Was you saying anything?
Yeah. So I was saying, right, in general, this is like, what do you say? Like when you're reading the specification or reading this code, right? This is like you have got a new code base and you have to debug through it, right? So it's the same thing. Like you will see that one method is again calling other method, right? So you have to like go to the stack and it's like just like that. You basically search and like try to find your way through that. And like sometimes it is very interesting to see like what you already expect in JavaScript, right? What you already know, trying to sort of find the same thing, like trying to prove that okay, this will actually happen from the specification. Like that is also interesting. So like for example, one day I was checking that what happens when you set that like array.length, right? Like we already know this. Your array has 10 element, and then you do array.length equal to 0, and then it will also delete all the elements, right? So all of those things you can actually find it like literally written here. So yeah.
Yeah. And one suggestion: please do not use all of these things on your interview questions.
True. Yeah.
Cool. Anyone else have to ask anything or discuss on something?
I wanted
Then,
to
yeah.
I
Sorry.
wanted to ask Abbas that is reading specification now you got it as a hobby, like because what I see is like it's very confusing, and if I have to search for something, I just go to Google and like search it for and get a lot of results. But going to the specification and jumping from one place to another, that is like really confusing and complicated. Like for me as a beginner, I think that is very like confusing. So what do you think, like when is the right time to use it? Like like you do it as a hobby, or like sometimes you like find like you want to know deeper?
I probably can answer that. So if you want to learn what happens, you should Google. If you want to understand why that happens, then spec is a place, because in a Google you will not get a lot of detail on why something happens, and if you don't understand this interfaces, like the what was I keep forgetting the name, the record completion record thing. So if you don't understand that, and if in any article anyone is talking about a completion record or something, you'll not understand what is happening there. Like same if you uh, read about this argument or something, like so you will not understand what that particular thing means. So that time a specification might help you. But yeah, most of time we don't want to know why something happens. We just want to know what all behavior particular syntax have.
So this was like really interesting, like going into things and deeper things. Yeah.
I mean, if you are learning, right, I wouldn't suggest that you like start or go into this thing right now, right?
Yeah,
It is a good enough source, like for most of the things. Yeah. But after that, later, if you want to learn, basically.
Yeah. Ah, cool. Thank you.
Cool, Abbas. This was really helpful. I was not knowing most of this, so this was a big learning for me. Thanks for sharing this.
Yeah, thank you, Abbas. This was really interesting.
Yeah, cool. Also, just one last thing, I guess, not any more technical stuff. So if you want to like learn more stuff, right, I put few links here. So this like I started reading from this article. This was very helpful. Like, so this Timothy Gu, right? He was, I think, interning at Google in their like Chrome team, and just fixing window.open. Okay, that's all he did like for his internship, because there are like so many variants or so many these things for it. So he wrote this article. It's really nice. Now V8 recently started some series understanding the Ecmascript spec. So they also have write about a lot of things. Yeah, I guess I made a video. And then there is this one stolen, like this. I think it shouldn't be on YouTube, but yeah, from Frontend Master Kyle Simpson made like one video in like previous version of his course, right? Where he showed like for just 4 or 5 minutes, what if you want to like grow through the spec yourself. And yeah, if you want to basically ask more people, IRC is there. There is a new discourse. This is like more accessible, I think, for most people. Okay, so a lot of people actually discuss there. Like you can ask questions, and yeah, I mean proposals are also here, things like that. Okay. Uh, what else? This is more interesting. Yeah, you'll find there is a nice podcast that Hemant started. So he was basically interviewing some TC39 delegates. So that is like just for fun, not much of a learning, but yeah, interesting. Yulia Statsev, she is like a delegate and I think co-chair or something. She also started some streaming on this thing Twitch about like how this compiler work. Another thing is very interesting. TC39, there are some panel discussions. Okay, so you'll find on YouTube, like see in a lot of JS view, they actually like put a lot of TC39 delegates together, and people can just ask questions. These are also sometimes very like interesting things. And last thing is this thing I wanted to show is basically if you want to get more involved sort of without being a delegate is right. So they actually started this, it's an unofficial thing, but they started this outreach group. So where if you want to read the spec and write about it, so maybe like the new proposals or even old things, right? You can join, you can like create a issue and join here, right? So they have like a monthly meeting or something where you can say that you can actually find issues here. So let's say numeric separators, right? So yeah, Brian said that he will write about this. Okay, so this is more like whatever new thing is come up, you can blog about it, and they have like a monthly meeting where you can discuss these things, that how can we inform others about what is going on, what new proposals are coming, all of that. And yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, cool.
Thanks, Abbas. Thanks for sharing.